I've heard, and
Right.
it's a really neat thing that you're doing. So,
Well, I've been doing it for about 3 years now.
okay.
And it's called Veterans of the Valley. It's on KAMU, the public television station here. And where I talk to a different veteran each week.
Okay.
And have you seen the show at all?
I haven't gotten to yet. No, sir.
Okay. Well, it's on every weekend. It's on Friday nights at 8:30. And then it repeats Saturday and Sunday. The same show repeats Saturday and Sunday. So
Okay.
the same show is on 3 times each weekend. And like I said, I had your dad on, I guess it's been a couple of years, I guess, that I went and visited with your dad and had him on, and he told me that you were serving in Afghanistan, is that right?
I have one tour in Afghanistan and one in Iraq.
And one in Iraq, right. And so I've been meaning to call you for a long time, and I just my schedule finally got to where I wasn't on vacation, and they weren't taping for a while, so here we go. What the show is, it's a 30-minute show, and we tape it on Thursdays over at KAMU. And what I do here is with every veteran that I've done, and I've done about 100 veterans, you might be number 100 or pretty close to it. Done about 100 veterans in about 2.5 years, and I come and I just visit and just sort of hear the story and just sort of talk about it in an informal way. And then we go and we take the show on Thursday and obviously kind of condense things a little bit in the 30 minutes, because 30 minutes goes really, really quick, you know. So just tell me about, before your military career, I guess you were you raised here?
Well, we actually grew up outside of Houston, Richmond, Rosenberg.
Okay. Okay.
So about 20 minutes southeast of Houston.
I see.
My mom had a general practice there.
Right.
I went to school up until 7th grade in Richmond, Rosenberg.
Right.
My dad's a coach and a teacher.
Right.
So when he got a job outside of that smaller town and even smaller town than that, I followed him out there, as did both my sisters. Was out there from 7th grade till 10th grade.
Right.
When he moved back into Richmond Rosenberg, coaching again.
Right.
We didn't have a very good football team, so the bouncing around happened. Spent half a semester back in Richmond Rosenberg when my mom was offered the deanship of the actual medical school up here.
Right.
No, take that back. She didn't get the deanship for a couple more years. Anyways, we moved up here. I enrolled in Allen.
Played when your dad was coaching there?
The first year he didn't coach. Actually, he
was
always
coaching basketball, right? Wasn't he?
He coached football, basketball, golf,
everything,
several things.
Yeah, right.
Small schools like that.
Right.
Multiple jobs. And my senior year, there was actually an opening up on the staff, so he got to come on over there, which was neat.
Yeah.
My dad got to coach me all 4 years through school, so it was.
That's great. Through Allen.
Yeah. Well, through Brazos High School, Lamar Consolidated, and then Allen.
Right. Yeah.
Which was really neat, really fun. And then after that, like I said, a little bit of a rocky start on my collegiate career, and I bounced around for a few years. I guess I was 21. Pretty much had run my life pretty far into the ground.
Yeah.
There weren't a lot of upwardly mobile prospects, and I had always figured that I'd end up in the military for at least a short stint.
Right.
Ended up signing up for 6 years.
I see.
Went to basic training in Georgia. Attended airborne school in Georgia as well.
Right.
And went through what they call RIP, which is the Ranger Indoctrination Program, to get into a Ranger battalion.
I see.
There's a small difference between having a Ranger tab and being in a Ranger battalion. Generally, what they say is that being in a Ranger battalion is a lifestyle. Having a tab means that you've qualified through the school. I actually got sick when I was in airborne school. Went through the first 2 weeks of the indoctrination program, which is, I guess some people would call it hazing, some people would call it, a rite of passage.
Right.
I got sick again, actually had a med drop, had the choice to go back through again, and I didn't. So it's what they call a voluntary withdrawal, and they shipped me up to Fort Drum, New York. Technically, I was in breach of contract because I didn't go back through the program, so they had the right to send me wherever they wanted to. And Fort Drum is kind of a black hole. It's one of those places that doesn't get a lot of people to volunteer for it. So Up to Fort Drum I went and spent.
More training there.
Oh, well, actually, that's where I actually got to my unit. 2nd Battalion of the 87th Infantry.
Okay.
Spent 3.5 years there.
Right.
At one time, I went to Egypt in 2001, 2002. I was actually there during 9/11.
In Egypt?
Mm-hmm. We came back from Egypt. I went to sniper school in May of 2002. And we bounced around throughout platoons within the battalion. Excuse me. And then we deployed to Afghanistan, part of OEF 4. Now, Fort Drum is a very, very highly deployed division, simply because the history of the unit came through. They stopped deploying probably right after World War II, and then they deactivated the division when Reagan came in and started building things back up. They reintroduced the division and put it up in New York. And for the first 5 or 6 years, they didn't really do much. They were just kind of sitting there. And some of the higher ups started bitching and moaning, saying, "Hey guys, we want to go do something," and it happened. So they're now the most deployed division in the 18th Airborne Corps, which is basically the Eastern Seaboard.
Right.
And so if you're at Fort Drum, you're going to deploy at least once every 2 years.
I see.
Now, Egypt was obviously before 9/11 was a
Right.
peacetime deployment.
Right.
I came back and we went to Afghanistan in August of 2003, and I got back in May of 2004.
Okay.
At which time, when units come back like that, there's several people that are getting out. Do you know what a stop loss is? Stop losses begin to be lifted because the way the Army does it basically is they will allow a unit-specific stop loss, which means if you're part of this deploying unit, then you're going to stay with them until you get back, at which time it will start at the battalion level and go all the way back up to division, then to the Army to release the stop loss, and then anybody that's been in longer than what they were supposed to be can go home. So what you're generally seeing nowadays in the Army is that a stop loss will start anywhere from 4 to 5 months before the deployment, and will continue anywhere 3 to 6 months after the deployment. And a lot of that for afterwards is for safety, getting soldiers' heads back on right and whatnot. When I got back from Afghanistan in May, actually I got married on August 3rd, and we deployed on August 5th of 2003. So I've been married for 2 days. So when I got back, there were a lot of things that I was putting together. Me and my wife were trying to learn how to live as a married couple. She was adjusting to moving to the States. She's Canadian. So between waiting for all the immigration things to come through and whatnot, that was probably a very tenuous 6 months, to say the least.
So she was in Canada while you were.
She did. She
deployed,
stayed
right?
up simply because she's a registered nurse, so she had a job up there. One of the reasons we got married before I left is because of some of the benefits and whatnot. And so, all things said, we were looking to have a great deal of money when I came back to start a new life, looking at houses and whatnot. Because I thought when I got back, I would be getting close to getting out. Which should have been the case. But when I got back, obviously they started dispersing soldiers, and they gave everybody at my unit a choice. They said either you can move over 2 brigades to the 1st Brigade and finish out your time there, or you can re-up for, I want to say the minimum was another 2 years. And they waived several of the rules that said it would be 2 years from the day you signed up, which would have basically put you into a stop loss for that unit again. So most everybody, several combat veterans, shifted over to the 1st Battalion of the 87th Infantry, one of our sister battalions, me included. And to be honest, they did it on purpose, and I can't blame them. Logistically, and not to get too far into politics, but when Clinton balanced the budget, he also pretty much cut our combat forces in half. So working in 2 different theaters between Iraq and Afghanistan, we were really kind of stretched thin. And they had a battalion full of guys that have at least 1, if not 2, combat tours in. Several non-commissioned officers, such as myself, with combat experience, so they had very little filling to do in the battalion. And they did it on purpose because they knew that a bunch of people were getting out and they couldn't, it just didn't make sense for them to let everybody out and try to retrain people before they went over, so they lost us. And we went to Iraq for IF4.
Okay. When did you go back? When did you go to Iraq?
We deployed August 12th of 2006, no, 2005.
2005.
And came back on, we left September 27th, didn't get back to the States till August 2nd.
Okay, so you were in Afghanistan for 9 months. You were home for about 9 months.
Actually, right? About 13 months.
Oh, that's right. From August to August. Okay. Got it. For 13 months you were home.
But within those 13 months, I was gone training for about 6 of them.
I see. Where did you go?
We had a month-and-a-half long training deployment to JOTC, or JRTC, which is in Fort Polk, Louisiana, Joint Readiness Training Center. We had a month-and-a-half long battalion deployment in Florida. To be honest, I don't remember what the camp was called, but we went down there to do an up training for Iraq. Several different field problems within the unit. What happens is they work from the smallest unit all the way up to the biggest unit. So starting about 3 months after I got back and transferred over to the new battalion, we started what they call squad exercises, which is groups of anywhere from 5 to 9 people working on assaults, working on different what they call battle drills, reacting to contact, assaulting after contact. Once you do it with the squad, you move up to a platoon level, which is around 30 guys. There's usually 3 to 4 squads within a platoon. So you did squads, you did platoon. After that, you went to the company level. You ran company exercises, and any of these can run anywhere from a week to 3 weeks out in the field. So, I'd be back for 3 months. I'd go out for 2 or 3 weeks, come back for a week and a half, 2 weeks.
Right.
Go out for another 3 weeks, come back for a week and a half, 2 weeks. Go out for another month, come back. Then we'd gear up for JRTC and go down for a month, come back. JRTC is designed specifically to get everybody ready, to see what the faults and what the strong points of a unit are. Our particular unit was very good at what they call MOUNT, which is the urban environment fighting. Okay, so they took us all together and said, hey, here's what you're doing right, here's what you're doing wrong, this is what you need to fix. We came back and our commander was pretty gung-ho about training. He said, okay, hey, we're going to do this one more time on our own. We're going to go down to Florida. And one of the reasons they did that is because if guys are back at Fort Drum doing training missions, sometimes your mind is not 100% where it needs to be. So we spent almost a month and a half down in Florida, came back and had about 3 or 4 months before we deployed back to Iraq. So it was back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
Let's go back to Afghanistan. What was your job there?
In Afghanistan, it started out, I had just gotten promoted to E5, sergeant, buck sergeant. And I had grown up in what they call the Scout Sniper Platoon.
Right.
As a radio telephone operator, as a assistant team leader, as a spotter or actual shooter for a sniper team, but I hadn't been sniper qualified. Now, in May of 2002, I got my sniper qualification and came back and started training somebody else in my RTO job so that I could take over for a sniper team leader when I got promoted to E5, which means because the teams are so small and because the promotions work a certain way, they don't want to put you back in charge of all your buddies, which is pretty common. So they transferred me off to a line unit, to which I became a team lead for an actual squad. So I was in charge of 3 other guys, had 1 guy above me, and then an equal team that worked with us with another E5 and 3 other guys. So it was a team of 9 guys, or a squad of 9 guys. I was in charge of 3 of them. Halfway through, because of attrition and other things, I got promoted up to squad leader, which meant I was in charge of 9 guys then, and finished out the last 6.5 months in Afghanistan as a line squad leader, regular infantry squad leader. Coming back when I transferred over, they found out that I was sniper qualified. We ran a few designated marksman missions when I was in Afghanistan that they have what they call an MTO, or missions, tactics, and an employment, which means, hey, these are the things that you have to have for a certain unit, and this is how you're supposed to use them, but it never works that way once you get over there. There was a shortage of qualified snipers, so they instead would take me off of my squad. I would take 1 or 2 guys that I knew how to shoot, and we would run different missions from there. And when they found that out at the new unit I went to, they stuck me in the scout sniper platoon, and I spent the entire tour over in Iraq doing anti-sniper, what they call IED, and improvised explosive device missions. So a lot of Overwatch, a lot of planning, and a lot of mission analysis, data analysis, looking at all what they call SIGACs, whether it be IEDs or small arms fire incidents that happen in certain places. And you go through and you date them by time, you date them by where they happened at, and you would go through and say, okay, it looks like every third Tuesday at this street, sometime between the hours of 8 in the morning and 8 at night, there's something that happens here. So we're going to go sit up over here, we're going to watch this intersection and do this, this, and this. And that's what the majority of my time was spent doing. We also spent about 4 months. Do you know where Abu Ghraib is?
I've heard of it.
You've heard of it. It's about 50 miles west of Baghdad. I don't even know if it's a full 50 miles. It took about 45 minutes to drive, so probably only about 30 miles. And that is the big prison complex. And there's also, it's right in the middle of the Fertile Crescent. So it's not what you would imagine Iraq being. It was very green, a lot like South Texas with all the rice paddies and whatnot. They had their irrigation dishes set up, and what we did down there mostly is anti-mortar missions. They obviously, when we came through with the initial assault in Iraq, we didn't have the amount of forces it would have taken to secure every ammo depot or weapons depot that we passed. So they'd blow what they could find in place, but sometimes that would take a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks to get to, and by that time people that would come through and take mortars and shells and rifles and whatnot. So they were actually fairly well armed, all the way up to 120 millimeter mortars.
Wow.
And they would use those. They'd ride around in the back of a truck, set them up, and fire them into a base, which with a 120 millimeter mortar, you can be like 7,000 yards away and still fire that. That's well out of eye shot. We would basically take all the readings that they got from our tactical operations center, and they'd say, look, this is where it looks like they're firing from. This is the intervals that they're firing at. This is what we need to get done, and we go out and dig subterranean hides, and that was more what you would see on TV, where we actually dug out and camouflaged everything, laid in the ground, and waited for some poor guy to come try to shoot mortars at us.
Yeah.
And besides that, most of the time in Iraq was spent doing anti-ID missions, where we would overlook highways, where they generally put out their bombs and whatnot. Basically try to catch them in the act, so that they wouldn't do that anymore.
And if you did catch them in the act, what would you do?
We'd shoot them. They didn't get caught as many times as you would think.
Right.
Imagine sitting on I-45 in the middle of Houston, 4 or 5 stories up, and looking at a 2-mile stretch of highway. You also have to imagine that these roads are very unimproved. It would actually be like looking at a stretch of Highway 6 that was I-45 with the feeder roads and everything. And dump the entire College Station dump between Rock Prairie exit and University. Just take the whole dump and just spread it out through the ditches and in between the roads. And that's kind of what it would be like. It's very hard to tell what's going on. People stop all the time. Their cars aren't very good, so it's hard to tell who's breaking down, hard to tell what they're doing when they do that. So between 2 guys watching a 2 or 3 mile stretch of highway, you have to, stay pretty alert for, you're talking 24 to 72 hours. That's really draining on you to try to look at everybody that's stopping on the highway and figuring out what they're doing. So
right.
that was probably the hardest part of it.
Sure. And determining what they were doing and hoping you were right.
I was never wrong.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that I let 1 or 2 get away because I wasn't sure.
Because you weren't sure.
Luckily, I was within a squad, and I had a leader in my squad that was, while he was very gung-ho and more concerned about us than them, which is a mindset that you learn to get into, he was also I don't want to say compassionate because it's not the right word. He had a lot of integrity.
Mm-hmm.
He thought about what he was doing before he did it. Of course, we worked under what they call the rules of engagement. If something that you were watching met the rules of engagement, you didn't actually have to turn around and say, hey, can I do this, or this?
Mm-hmm.
When you start working in small team operations like that, you generally start to learn to trust the people that you're with. And if something happens, everybody needs to be ready to hop up and back them up and know exactly what's going on. So you would usually not spend more than an hour on what we call glass, either looking through the scope or binoculars or spotting scopes or whatnot. We had several different types of glass that we used depending on the magnification, the distance, and what we were trying to look at.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you spend an hour, it's going to wear you out pretty good.
Sure.
And you would spend probably 15 minutes of the next hour that you would get to sleep or, be off, briefing the next guy coming on. Hey, there's a car parked over here. It doesn't look like the guy's doing anything wrong, but, might want to keep an eye on him. The lady in the house across the street's been doing this, this, and this. I don't think she saw any flash from our glass, but make sure you don't, flash anything out there because they might see us or whatnot. So by the time you actually got somebody briefed into what was going on, you probably only had 30 minutes of downtime.
Right.
And you'd just go on doing that for 24 to 72 hours.
And you'd be assigned in another spot.
Well, yeah, we usually set it up with a 6-man team
Mm-hmm.
of 2 people on glass, 2 people on security.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we would have to go into different houses or whatnot, depending on where we were and what we were trying to do. The planning of the mission required that we do a lot of reconnaissance. So we would ride along with the line dogs or the regular line companies, and we would stop and do random searches of different houses to know what the setups inside the houses were, how many males were in the houses, how many females were in the houses, what kind of vantage points were within the houses, but we had to do it to where we weren't being conspicuous and we weren't being noticed looking out the windows trying to see what we could see. We couldn't do it in the middle of the night. We'd have to do it during the day, which threw our whole schedules off most of the time. So we would take off on a mission in the middle of the night and they'd drop us off anywhere from 300 to 3,000 meters from where we were actually going.
Mm-hmm.
Drop us off somewhere in Baghdad, and we would infiltrate by foot into wherever we were going. We would either have to use a ladder or even break in the front door of wherever we were going. Obviously round the people up in the house and say, hey, sorry, but we're here and there's not really much you can do about it, so bring us any guns that are in the house and y'all are going to be confined into this room and this room. And this is where you're allowed to go. You can use this bathroom. So usually we would take the kitchen. They would generally have a family route off the kitchen that we would let them be in and then allow them access to a bathroom or whatnot. But nobody could leave the house while we were there, simply because that would be not good for us.
Right. Right.
And like I said, we'd spend anywhere from 24 to 72 hours. Hour on glass, an hour down, an hour on security,
Mm-hmm.
to where we could keep an eye on the family. Most of them weren't generally happy about the fact that we were there, especially the way that we learned that we needed to do things. You usually have to go in fairly hard, not being very nice because you really don't know where you're walking into or who the people that live there are. Generally, after the first few hours, you could relax a little bit with the family, allow a little bit of conversation if they spoke English, and explain to them what was going on and why we had to treat them the way we did.
Mm-hmm.
And that was probably the roughest part of actually going in is, you have to move people around and let them know that you're not joking around about what you're doing there.
Right.
And if you can imagine waking up in the middle of the night and having 4 or 5 guys standing around your bed with your wife laying next to you with guns pointing in your face, you probably wouldn't be real happy about it.
Right.
But there probably ain't a lot you can do about it. So
Yeah.
trying to balance going in hard enough that we could secure the house and make sure that everything was what needed to happen was happening, while still trying to respect.
It's hard to make them understand that you were there to make their neighborhood safer.
Sure. And to be honest, the Muslim culture or the Islamic culture that is in Iraq is so much different than what it is in Afghanistan, and it's so much different than what it is here in the States. I kind of like to describe it as a little bit like the Latino population that's here. Very high bravado, okay, very macho, but generally that's most of what it was. It was just standing up and looking strong and being mean, and most of them were very nice. They were also, like I said, I mean, if a bunch of people broke into my house in the middle of the night and woke me up with guns in my face, I probably wouldn't be a real happy camper.
Right.
But like you said, we weren't doing it to hurt anybody.
Yeah.
We simply had to protect ourselves from the fact that we don't know who these people are. We don't know who they can call. We had to collect cell phones. We had to unplug all the phones in the house. You know, if there's a wall phone, you have to unplug the receiver and put it over in a pile with all the rest of the things. You have to, you know, conduct probably a 1 or 2 hour search on the house to make sure that any weapons that might be hidden or any intel that we might find in the house. If you do find any kind of what they call Class 1 intel, which would be anything that would give away any kind of weapons cache or bomb-making factory or anything anti-U.S. in the house, we'd obviously have to call in the public relations guys. So it was very multifaceted as far as what we had to do when we got in there.
My next obvious question is, did you, in this amount of time, I imagine you went into some houses that you wished you hadn't gone into?
Oh,
I mean,
sure, yeah.
You felt your safety was compromised.
Absolutely, and it was a learning process. When we first got into Iraq, we relieved the Louisiana National Guard, who unfortunately came back to Katrina.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to say they didn't do a good job in the area of operations in which we were. They definitely did not do a job that a regular Army unit probably would have done. So when we get debriefed or when we start taking over the area of operations and they start saying, okay, hey, here's what's going on, this is what's happening, you have to take and look at all that with a grain of salt, no matter who you're taking over from. So we were really kind of learning as we went as far as what we needed to do. The first couple times we tried to get into abandoned houses, that didn't work out so well because any signs of anything going on in that house and everybody in that neighborhood knew, hey, there's somebody in that house, it's either bad guys or Americans. And we didn't really want them telling anybody anything either way. So we eventually graduated into where we were going into occupied houses. We had to make sure that we weren't going into anybody prominent's house for several different reasons. First of all, their impact on the community and their ability to sway people's opinions about the Americans. The fact that if they didn't show up somewhere for a couple of days, that would probably not be good. We're going to have a lot of people knocking on the door trying to figure out what's going on. So we wanted to go to houses that were on the streets, but at the same time, not disturb anybody that was going to be missed greatly for 2 or 3 days at a time. And really working down into that. There was a house that we actually got into. I actually had it pulled up on the computer here earlier. Just a second. In which we actually jumped about 8 roofs to get onto the roof of the house and went in from the top. The guy was anti-American, but he wasn't what we would call a Class 1 threat. He wasn't a high-value target. He wasn't actively trying to, but he did have a gun, and he did take a couple pot shots at us. Luckily, nobody got hit. But yeah, that one we actually decided to stay in the house, despite the gunshots and whatnot. And it was a pretty fruitless mission because within 20 minutes of us being there, I'm sure that at 2 o'clock in the morning, the entire neighborhood and anybody else that wanted to know knew that we were there. So actually getting in and trying to get into those houses was actually a pretty tough thing to do.
Yeah.
Have you ever been on Google Earth?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
We are actually looking at, let me go ahead and drag this out. That is Baghdad right there.
Okay.
And this over here is Camp Liberty, Iraq. this whole outline here houses about 55,000 American troops. A lot of folks there. And I was actually, if I can get down close enough, I was actually living right in here for most of the time that we were there. And let me see if I can get this turned around. And back out just a tad more. Our area of operations was from this line here all the way up, all the way down, and all the way back to the corner. And that's about...
How many square miles is that?
It's about the size of College Station.
Okay.
There's a lot more people.
Yeah.
But it's about the size of College Station. It would be like throwing the 5th Ward of Houston in the middle of College Station.
Right.
And that's about what it was like. We were responsible for...
So you could be assigned to anywhere in there.
We could.
Right.
We spent the majority of our time... Let's see if I can get down close to it. This is a alternate supply route that was called Sword. This is a main supply route that they called Tampa. And this was an alternate supply route that they called Michigan that actually came back. And again, that's the corner of the base right there.
So these two, I guess, were the main targets of IEDs, or?
Well, the major roads were.
Yeah.
Usually not on... This is more like what you would think of as an interstate right here. This is kind of like a Highway 6.
Right.
And the amount of traffic varies around what time it is, but as you can see, I think this is a picture of a Humvee that got blown up. Yeah, it is. There's 2 main lanes that are 2 lanes wide, a dirt patch, and then feeder roads along both sides. And a lot of them happened... A lot of the IEDs happen by them putting things into the dirt medians here. Now you can't see a lot of the detail, but this is so full, or was so full of trash and gunk and crap that you really didn't... You'd spend the first 3 hours of daylight looking through anything that was on the road, trying to see if anything that was out there already looked like something that might...
Something could be in a coffee can or something like that. I mean, I guess they would... Plant them anywhere.
They can make bombs out of anything.
Anything.
The majority of the ones that we call pop and drop IEDs, which are bombs that they would put together like 2 50 millimeter mortar rounds. They would be taped together with an electrical conduit running off to either a cell phone or a little walkie-talkie radio. Obviously, it needs electric current to go through and set the bomb off. They would have to tape that walkie-talkie on there, turn the walkie-talkie on, toss it in the road, and it would be in anything from a kid's backpack to what we would probably describe as a gunny sack, but they used it for anything from bread to picking up cans on the side of the road. So they're out everywhere on the roads. You couldn't tell what was in what. But they'd pull up one.
So if you had this section, let's say what we're looking at, like right here, you might be in, are most of these houses 2-story houses? So you might be in any one of these houses right here, that close to it, up as high as you could get, obviously, to where you could get a good vantage point, right? You wouldn't be looking through trees and
a lot of it is height, absolutely. A lot of it is mostly fields of fire. One of the big misconceptions is that you want to get high with an angle. The higher you get, the more ballistics start to take on. Funny, getting up to 2 stories or 3 stories isn't too big a deal. But if we could be in a 2nd floor room with a 3rd story above us, looking through a window that gave us fields of fire, we would much rather be there than up top of a roof because people are always moving around and whatnot. So, so yeah, absolutely, we could be. In fact, I was. I've been in this. This is an actual school right here. I've been in this house and this house. This house, which was actually abandoned, that was one of the first missions we ran. And both of the corner houses here, as well as this corner house. We ran over 250 missions. as a platoon. So what they would obviously do is if they had a mission coming up on Route Sword right here, and they wanted, a certain amount of it covered, or if we came up with anything that came out on the SIGAX report and came up with any kind of pattern, we could obviously propose a mission and say, hey, we think that it would be a good idea to set up here. These are the reasons why. This is what's backing it up. We spent a lot of time. This is South Baccaria. This is North Baccaria. And both of these areas right here, this little circle, which is probably about the size of from 2818 up to what's past Southwest Parkway.
The Rock Prairie?
Yeah, yeah. From 2018 back to Rock Prairie. And yeah, from there to there. And then, of course, all these houses are filled up with, 15 or 20 people apiece. And a lot of the people that lived in this area didn't like us very much. So it was very hard to get into some of these houses down here without them either putting up an alarm or letting everybody know what was going on.
Can these be captured like as a still photograph and emailed?
Let's see. I bet you. Let's see. It says print, probably. Add overlay.
They can be.
Nope.
Doesn't give you that option.
I know that you can take still photographs of it.
Well, what is that? What's that envelope? What does that do?
That's a print.
No, the envelope. Next one.
Email.
Yeah.
There you go. Graphic 3D view.
So you can. Why don't you, in the next day or so, give me 2 or 3, like the first one you did, sort of showing the overview of where Baghdad. Give me 2 or 3 things, and then something like that, and email them to me. Will you?
Okay, sure.
Will you do that? And then I can email them to KAMU, and we can probably use them to where you can describe a little bit about what that is.
Okay.
Email me something like that, and then maybe the farther out view of sort of where you were and all that. Maybe not a whole lot of them, maybe 3 or 4 pictures. Will you do that?
I will actually. I'll send you 4 or 5 of these, and I'll send you an overview, and you can pick whichever ones.
Yeah. Send me as much as you want. I'll give you my email address here in a little bit, but that would be great. Yeah, that would be good.
But that's kind of an overview of what we would.
So this is what you did. This was your job, your whole tour of Iraq. How long were you there?
A little over. Actually, a full year.
A full year.
Boots on ground for 11 months and 25 days.
What was the most dangerous situation you found yourself in? I mean, did any of the bad guys you shot at shoot back, or?
Yeah, several times. We weren't really too worried about that. They're not very good marksmen over there.
That's what I've always heard. Yeah.
We were out at Abu Ghraib. They had a team that had a 120 millimeter mortar that they would fire from, and the military has what they call a Q-36, which when a round comes into somewhere that a Q-36 is, it looks at the trajectory you put in, how big the round was, what kind of explosives it had, and it can look at the crater and tell you where it came from within 200 or 300 yards. They basically pinpointed where these guys had been firing from. So we set up a mission where we were going to take 3 different sniper teams along with our security elements, which were the reconnaissance teams that came along with us. We were going to go out and we were going to catch this guy and make sure he wasn't shooting mortar rounds anymore. And there were actually 3 different teams going out within a fairly small area, I'd say within 5 square miles of each other, which is a lot of land, but at the same time, not a big space if you're going to have 15 covert people walking around trying not to be caught. We got in the first night about 11, so it was probably 3 or 4 hours after sundown. About the time they go to bed, so just right after the last prayer call. And we were out in the middle of the field and we were trying to dig a subterranean hide, which has to be fairly good size, probably the size of this carpet right here, in order to fit 4 or 5 guys in it. And then obviously you have to construct something and bring it along so that you can lay it over the top of it, put a tarp down, put the grass back over it to where somebody could actually walk over the top of it and not realize there were 4 or 5 guys laying underneath them. And we actually didn't get that entirely done the first night. So we had retreated back to our secondary emplacement, which was an abandoned farmhouse, which would have been fine. Unfortunately, one of the other teams, their leaders weren't doing the right thing. They got lost and had to come rendezvous with us, which they did at like 9 o'clock in the morning, which is not bueno. When you have 5 guys holed up in an abandoned house trying not to move around and yet still pull security on what's going on and still looking at the target area to make sure those people don't come around, and then you have 5 other Americans walking up in broad daylight, it's not a it's not a good situation to be in. But it's not like we could turn them away and say no, you know. So they came and they were in the farmhouse with us. Again, they weren't doing the right thing, so their security was actually posted outside of the farmhouse, which again is not good because people can see you. Right. And a lot of the people out of Abu Ghraib don't want you there. So we were waiting for the mortarmen to come up, and we heard about 3 mortar shells go off, and then couldn't have been 75 or 80 yards in front of us, you know, they went off again, which to us it looked like they were firing from the point across from us. If we'd been paying more attention, it was black smoke. Black smoke usually means the impact. White smoke usually means where they're launching them from. So we actually got our gear on. We had our gear on, and we assaulted through, I don't know, probably 75 or 80 yards of what I can describe as rice paddy. Basically, it was pretty mucky, wet stuff up to about your knees. Only to figure out that we were assaulting on a position that it was behind with the irrigation dishes, they usually have about 10 or 12 foot reeds growing really, really thick. It looks like a bamboo forest. And by the time we got on the other side, we realized that they were firing mortars at us and not firing mortars from there. So between breaking contact from that mortar fire and a little bit of small arms fire that was coming in from really way too far away to actually worry about. Of course, you're always worried about it. I mean, it doesn't take but one bad shot on their part to make a difference. But we actually had to break contact back about 3 clicks, 3,000 meters to a third or an emergency rendezvous point that we had. And they followed us, and bad for them that we had that planned out and ready to go. Good for us. There were 6 of them, and they were all killed. Nobody, thankfully, from us was wounded or hurt or killed. But yeah, that was pretty much our mistake on the first part, and we got really lucky that our emergency rendezvous point came into play, and that we had enough time to plan and set that up so that it was easily defensible.
I don't know what your comfort level is as far as talking about things, but I'll ask it. If you don't want to go there, that's fine. What were your thoughts the first time you shot somebody?
It was emotional. Not at the time that it happened. To be honest, there's so much training that you go through and that you do that when it finally happens, it's more of an afterthought than anything. Even on a sniper rifle, where you're looking through, 6 to 10 power scope, to where it would be like sitting across the room from somebody. Again, it's repetition. But when you finally do get to sit back and think about what you've done, it tugged at me for a while. It really messed with my head for a little while. Not enough to where it made the job difficult or undoable. But you go through several mental tests to make sure that you're of sound mind to be able to deal with this, obviously, before you even get to go to sniper school. But justifying what you've done and weighing it against the fact that that was somebody's son or somebody's father, somebody's brother, but again, being able to justify the fact that you've probably saved American lives.
Exactly.
It's your job.
Uh-huh.
It's what you trained to do. It's what you swore to do.
Right.
Yeah, it messes with your head a little bit.
Well, you took out somebody who wanted to set a bomb.
Yeah,
It would kill innocent people.
and like I said, at the time, and probably for several months afterwards, it really didn't. Yeah, there were a few nights where you'd think about it, but you adjust your mindset so much over there that it's not, you can't allow yourself to get caught up on the fact that you're going to be thinking about emotional things. That's usually done once you get back and start dealing with everything.
Mm-hmm.
But I would honestly be a little bit scared if I could have come back and not thought about that, and thought about, if you look at the kids that are coming through, the Karachi kids, have you seen that on the news?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just in a matter of 3 or 4 years, they don't know any different. That's what they've been taught. That's what they've been told. What if it would be possible to get to them and change their minds? It's not a rational line of thought,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to be able to kind of balance things out. No, they're not all bad people. Hell, I have friends that have either stolen a car, or they've done drugs, or gotten thrown in jail for being drunk. They're not bad people. They do some stupid things, but most of them have grown up to be married and have kids and have good jobs and be productive citizens. And a lot of the people that you see over there probably get caught up in things that I'm not going to say they don't have any choice, because I really don't believe that. But I mean, if I had lived over there and somebody came to me and said, "Hey, we're going to kill your wife and kids unless you go drop this bomb in the street," but if you go drop this bomb in the street and you do get killed for doing it, we'll give your wife and kids $50,000 and they'll be set for the rest of their lives. So when you start to rationalize that against what you've done, it's tough to be able to go back through. But again, to be able to look at it and say, look, this is my job. They were going to hurt Americans. I was doing this to keep them off the streets. Mm-hmm. And all in all, it was probably the best thing to be done at the time. That's getting to the point where you can actually rationalize that was the hard part. So while I was over there, no, it didn't bother me, mm-hmm. whether it be bravado or training or just not thinking about it. When I got back, me and my wife hit a pretty rough patch there while I was dealing with some things. So.
Yeah. Are you okay now?
Yeah, no, I've done some counseling with the VA. Mm-hmm. I wish I would have taken more of it before I got out. And it's not that the Army doesn't make it available. They do. Yeah. To anybody and everybody. Right. But at the time, like I said, you're not thinking about it like that. My wife is probably home. She is. Mm-hmm. You're thinking of it more as, this is my job. This is what needs to be done. When you get back, you're still in that mindset, and it takes a while for you to start to transform out of that.
Right.
Hi.
Hello. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good.
Mr. Turbiville, this is my wife, Anna Marie.
Hi, Anna Marie.
Nice to meet
Pleasure
you.
to meet you. How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good, good. You're at the Med?
Yeah.
What do you do over there?
I'm a critical care nurse.
Oh, are you?
Uh-huh.
Well, bless your heart. That's great. That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Good.
Yeah, Will and I are just visiting a little bit. We're almost done.
Oh, take your time.
I'm just going to...
No worries.
Telling me his stories. When you, I guess, growing up, how much did your dad talk to you about his experiences in Vietnam? Because, I mean, of the many veterans that I've interviewed, and the Vietnam veterans, of the 100, most of them have been World War II, because I'm trying to get as many of those talked to as possible.
Sure.
But I've talked to many Vietnam veterans, probably 35, 40. Mm-hmm. And, he is one of the few that, he was in the jungle. He was in the mess. Mm-hmm. He was, there wasn't anything pretty about his job. How much of that were you aware of growing up? Did he talk about it?
He told me a couple of funny stories. He really didn't. And he still doesn't. I mean, right. We've talked a little more. And a lot of it is the fact that we can sit here and we can tell stories. Were you in the service?
No.
Okay. Once you've been there and you've done it, it's not to take anything away from anybody that hasn't. Mm-hmm. But all all the adages and the cliches, of being in the shit and having the 1,000-yard stare. And while a lot of it is, a little bit over the top, a lot of it's true.
Sure.
Once you've been there and you've seen it, and trying to explain it to somebody that hasn't been there is very difficult.
Sure.
Most open-minded conservative people can stop and take a look at something and say, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But even still, until you've been there in the situation, trying to describe different things, a lot of times makes people that have been there a little bit uncomfortable because, hey, I don't hit women. I don't push them around. I don't treat them wrong. It's just not something I do. But there were times when we went into a house where, hey, if there was a 15 or 16-year-old girl that was not doing what we told her to do, then if you had to grab her by the shoulders and push her somewhere or sit her down somewhere forcefully, it was something that you did for yourself and for the people that you were with, for their safety and whatnot. It's not that you were doing anything to hurt her, but at the same time, you couldn't take the chance that she had a gun under her burqa or that she wasn't doing something. Something didn't make sense at the time.
Right.
And again, you just go off what you do to train and so situations like that most people don't talk about a lot is because their culture and our culture is so different, because the things that we had to do were sometimes distasteful, if not necessary. So yeah, he didn't talk a lot about it before I went. The one thing that I vividly remember is when I came back and told him that I had signed up for the Army for 6 years in the infantry. He just looked at me and was like, "You're an idiot. Why? Why I never wanted it?" And I was like, "Dad, it's a peacetime Army. I mean, what's going to happen? Nothing. We're not going to war anytime soon." But as I spent more time in the Army and did more and more things, some of his sentiments made more sense, because you'd never wish some of the feelings or some of the experiences that you have on somebody that you love, whether it be a wife or a son or a daughter.
Sure.
But at the same time, he would have never told me not to or what to do or how to do it.
Right.
I'm sure if I would have talked to him more, he'd probably told me, "Don't go into the infantry. Why are you signing up for 6 years?" But but things worked out. So yeah, we very seldom talk about details. Sometimes jokes or overviews. We have once or twice, but it's not something that happens very often.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I hope that wasn't too.
No, that was good. We haven't talked about your mom. Obviously, she's a lady who's very high profile around here and nationally. But on the personal standpoint, how does she feel about her little boy?
She probably handled it better than my dad did. Whether out of pure ignorance or just sheer willpower, that's one of the things about my mom.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say she did more, because I know she did.
Sure.
But as far as being able to deal with it, I think my mom did a lot better after I started going over and whatnot.
Right.
She wasn't pleased with my initial decision to join the Army, especially for the length of time that I did.
Right.
Once I was in and everything started settling down, it actually looked like something that I might be doing for the rest of my life, or at least as a career. And she really did. Once she got used to the idea that I wasn't going to medical school as I had planned when I was younger, or some of the other things that we had talked about, she actually really jumped on board and was probably one of my biggest advocates, or somebody that praised me more than anybody else.
Well, your parents are remarkable people. I mean, I've known your mom obviously longer than I've known your dad.
Sure.
Just from me being in the media and her being obviously, it's hard to believe that it's been 10 years since she was elected the first female president of the American Medical Association.
It is. It seems like
in '98.
Just a couple of years ago.
Yeah. It's hard to believe that it has been that long, but she's obviously a great asset to the community, and
she's an even greater asset to the family. She really is.
I bet. She's a strong-willed, she's a tough lady, isn't she?
She's of course there's a lot of what you see in public is very much the same as what we see at home, but
Right.
at the same time, there are bits and pieces that y'all probably don't get to see.
Sure.
Anything from being upset to being overly emotional.
Right.
But yeah, she,
Yeah.
being able to look back now, me and my mom didn't have a real great relationship at the time that I joined the Army. And that was a lot my fault.
Right.
I wasn't exactly a stellar citizen at the time. But, probably being in the Army and being able to see her soften up a little bit and realize while she let go of the mother-son relationship a little bit, and as I finally got comfortable enough to allow it back a little more,
Right.
the Army probably did more to bring me and my mom close
Right.
than a lot of things did.
Yeah. Well, that's excellent. That's good. Did you say you had some pictures?
I do.
Show me what you.
I'll let you actually go look through them, and you're more than welcome. Most of these are Afghanistan.
Right.
Uh,
Right.